Hey everyone, today is the long-awaited Kati Morton Q&A. I asked you about a month ago to send in some therapy questions for Kati to answer, and you guys are excited for this, and I'm excited for this, and now we don't have to wait any longer. So Kati Morton is a licensed therapist, and today she's going to answer some of our questions. She has a YouTube channel, so if you guys would like to check that out and get some professional advice, links are always down below. If you don't know who Kati Morton is, she's a huge name in the mental health community, and she's amazing. So first of all, Kati, I want to say thank you so much for answering our questions. So in this video, Kati's going to answer 5 questions, and in the next video she's going to answer another 5. You guys asked so many questions, but she can only answer 10. Without further ado, let's get on with it. So the first question is something that I submitted in this long list of 10 questions, is what inspired you to be a therapist?
Hey Kristen, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. What inspired me to be a therapist? To be truthful, it happened when I was really young. I remember thinking in middle school that all of my friends came to me to talk to me about things, and I really enjoyed seeing people's processes. How did they manage a breakup, or a person bullying them, or somebody talking about them behind their back, or a breakup with a friend, or any sort of thing. I really enjoyed people's processes and kind of being a part of it. And I also really enjoyed being the secret keeper. I was really good at it. And so it was around that time where I decided that maybe psychology was the field that I wanted to be in, and I started to pursue it from there.
The next question is, what is the difference between a therapist and a psychologist?
Now that's a really good question, the difference between a therapist and a psychologist. And I have to admit, being in the mental health field, I throw around a lot of terms that I know people may not understand or know the difference of. Whether it's a therapist, a social worker, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, there are so many different names. What do they all mean? Now, a therapist is someone like myself. I went to 4 years of university, 2 years of graduate school, which focuses on clinical psychology, and then I gathered 3,000 hours, I took my exam, I'm a licensed therapist. Now, a psychologist, instead of the 2 years of graduate school, they go to 4. And there are 2 different routes. They can actually focus on research, and a lot of psychologists work in labs and with different universities, trying to figure out more about our brains and why we do what we do. And others focus on the more clinical aspect, just like myself, and they see clients too. And they have to gather their hours as well and take their licensing exam just the same. It's just they went to 2 more years of graduate school.
So the next question is, what can a therapist do if you're in denial about your mental illness?
This is a really good question. What can a therapist do if you're still in denial about your mental health issues or your mental illness? The truth is not a lot, because if you come in to see me, I'm assuming that you're already willing to not only accept that you're struggling with something, but tell me what that something is so that we can put a treatment plan together and start working towards something. If you don't even want to tell me what the issue is or tell me what you're struggling with, you've kind of tied my hands and made it really difficult for me to move forward with you. So I've even had patients come in whose parents tried to force them and they don't want to talk and they're in denial. And usually I'll tell them, you're going to have to come back when you're ready to talk about something, because otherwise there's not much I can do.
The next question I think is really interesting, and they ask, how do you handle being a therapist if you can relate to your clients' problems? And how do you get past this?
Another great question. And as a therapist, if I find that I can relate to my clients' issues, it sometimes gives me a bizarre type of insight, because I may have already been in that myself, and I may have already, even if it's not my own personal experience, I may have had a close friend who went through something like that, and it really helps me more clearly navigate it based on the experience either I've had or an experience I've been very closely tied to. I don't really feel that it hinders me in any way. I feel like it actually kind of helps, as long as, if it was a personal thing, as long as I've already moved past it. Because in the therapy world, if there's something that I haven't moved past, that can cause a lot of transference or countertransference between me and my client, meaning that I may project onto them things that I'm struggling with, and they may project something onto me that I can't handle. And so it really makes the relationship difficult, and it can make therapy harder for the client. And so that's why I always say, if you want to be a therapist, you yourself need to be in therapy as well.
The last question I'm going to ask you in this video, Kati, is what do you think about the DSM-5, and how often do you refer to it?
The DSM-5, I utilize the DSM in general. The DSM-5 is a great resource, and if any therapist tells you otherwise, that means that they're really not fully doing their job, because diagnosing is part of what we do. And so I have to reference the DSM if an insurance company or a patient or a treatment plan and the person wants to know their diagnosis. If they ask for a diagnosis, I have to refer to it. I have to make sure they meet criteria. I have to see exactly what that criteria is, and I need to mark it down as such. So even though I find the DSM oftentimes really cumbersome, and so it can be also very narrow, so that people feel like, well, I'm an NOS of this and an NOS of that, and I just don't quite fit in any bucket, and that can be really difficult for people to hear and to understand themselves. And so to that end, I find it frustrating, and I find it so slow to change. And it took forever for binge eating disorder to get in there, and self-harm still doesn't have its own diagnosis. They only think it's under borderline personality disorder. My frustrations, there's a long list, but it is necessary for my job. Therefore, I refer to it at least twice a week, if not more, to make sure that I'm on point with what I'm doing with my clients, giving them the proper diagnosis and working on my treatment plans.
So thank you so much for answering our questions in this video, Katie. Part 2 of this Q&A series will be up next week, so watch out for that. Thank you so much, Katie, and I'll see you guys next video. Bye, guys.